You're thinking, how do they know this? And it's this idea of doubt sets in. Did I say that or didn't I say that? Did they get the message? Didn't they get the message? Why is this person saying they've not got something when I've, and that can allow the self-doubt to creep in. You're then more reliant on that other person. I think I'm not feeling well, or I'm not having a great week or whatever. Suddenly, from somebody who you're looking to pull away from, you're suddenly getting drawn towards to rely on for the reassurance, for them to give the nods in the right places. So on the day for me, when my partner said something in a message to me, I knew at that moment that they could only have known the thread of that conversation if they were A, in the room, which then meant the room was being bugged, which obviously I thought was a bit paranoid. But I knew something was up, and that was the day when I knew, and I said, have you been listening? And because I was so quick on the attack, because I knew something was up and they didn't have the right answers, I piled in there very quickly and said, fuck you, I know what's going on. I then took my phone, my iPad and my laptop to somebody who knew about tech. They went through all these, did you know that your security had been set for that phone to access did you know that your message streams could be accessed remotely? And I was thinking, why isn't this stuff being made more open to buyers? When we see all this stuff on TV about battered housewives, women with kids and relationships, the partner holds all the finances, therefore they control everything. These modern phones and some of the modern tech that goes with iPad, all these things tie in. These things become your life. You use them for everything. They become indispensable. But people don't realise that. And it's not just for your own personal security. What if you buy a second-hand device?
Now she was on drugs.
Well, we're the millennial, as they said. Millennials actually a year of exploration, a generation who explores a lot. There are way too many that has been, that me myself has been discovering. Still at the age of 39, thank you, I'm still seeing things, but I've learned from it. So what I have done as a millennial myself, based on my experience, is actually just believes in my morals.
That very much ties into...
The planet Pluto was in the sign of Libra from 1972 to 1984. Those born within this time will uncover power through relationships and work with changing interpersonal dynamics on a deep level during their lives. The planet Pluto was in the sign of Libra from 1972 to 1984. The sign of Libra, Pluto, the planet from Pluto, 1972 planet Pluto to 1984. Those born within this time, through relationships and work with changing interpersonal dynamics on a deep level during their lives.
When we become one of two, when we go from binary to dualism.
There's a lot of people that either never happy in relationships or think they need to be think they need to be alone, but they're never alone. So people say, oh, I've been single for 5 years, but they've been seeing people intermittently throughout that whole period. So they're single is kind of like a commune type of single. It's just not organised, not actually accepted or acknowledged. People don't really realise this is what I'm seeing. This isn't something that I've noticed.
And what I saw, they are a loving couple, and if they have fights and all of that, they just go to the room. I haven't even heard them shout. During my marriage, there's a certain time that we fight a lot, and yeah, learning from that point, I think the compromise in order for in order for the relationship to work. And not only that, knowing the person that you will spend the rest of your life is the most important thing. What do they want? What if your likes and dislikes are actually meeting each other, or if there's a compromise, if it's too much compromission, actually it doesn't work. Regardless how you love that person, you have to have like complementing each other at some point. Otherwise, like I said, that's what had happened to me in my marriage because I compromised a lot.
The whole dynamics of what went before that are completely changed. And the idea of a prenuptial, when I was asked, would I have a prenuptial, would I sign a prenuptial, I immediately responded in the affirmative. I said yes, and I said yes for the simple reason that I knew that that was the way for me to then politely ask the same question. And when I flipped that same question around very quickly to say, I'd expect the same of you, would you sign a prenuptial? That's when the puzzled look came across the face of the person who was asking me.
We're brought up to be codependents. Without this distortion, modern capitalism wouldn't work. The need for external validation and love is what drives consumerism. True love has nothing to do with the old paradigms of possession and control.
The idea of who we are as a person is often totally manifestly different to how a lover, a friend, a family member was. I always say to people, you want to know who you are, get your friend, get your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your colleague, your lover, to write the 10 things about you that stand out. That can be anything. Brave, ballsy, gutsy, determined, tenacious, hardworking, bad liar. You know, they can be good things, they can be negative. You get your list of 10 and compare them. You will very often never see the same 10 things listed. So the idea of how we see ourselves in the world and how others see us is very different.
Space is important. Nurturing and evolving. Nurturing and evolving. Nurturing and evolving. Arranged marriages act like a fence around a garden where you can get to know someone and start growing together. It's set in a different way. As long as you do the arranging, the power is yours. It's circling around you, not the whole family who fine-tooth comb through lots of angles in a marriage of clans. As long as you do the arranging, the power is yours.
The labeling of your gender, the labeling of your color, let's face it, it's there, still out there. That's regardless if it's like the acceptance and all of that, with all these legalities and all of that, still happening. However, we as the transgender or even a normal person could just be themselves, and you know, like this labeling thing should be out. I think we can still have the same thinking as everybody else, that life is normal. If you treat it abnormal, that's your problem. But then if you wanted to treat it right, believes in your moral, believe and respect to the person that you are with, in a relationship with, I think things never change. Like, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, it's the same matter as everyone else.
And there's something else. He couldn't talk on the phone.
You know, if your partner is a stalker, they're going to give you an iPhone. That's what I've learned, because there are certain things you can do on an iPhone that you can't do with other phones. And if you don't know how to go into a phone and look at these things, the settings and how they operate, you could be doing all kinds of things without realizing that a lover, friend, partner, business person can actually, if they know what they're doing, activate the security things on your phone in such a way that every message you send and receive, they have a look at, whether it's email, whether it's text. You know, I was getting message streams where parts of them were missing, and that's because somebody else was reading them first, and they were doing it on another device. But guess what? They had accessed my phone and said to that security thing, my phone, if it contacts yours, will allow your phone to do certain things, and all they need is they have the Wi-Fi code, and somebody has done something or said something in a way. You know, even just down for doing things like updates, I was finding that when I ever downloaded an update, all kinds of security settings would go. Suddenly, if I went on the internet, my browser history was being tracked, I was allowing cookies and all these other things, and I just thought, this is a very clever way to data harvest on one level, so they know who these people are, where they're buying, shopping, what they're looking for online. I mean, there was an article on the news, my friend was talking the other week, saying, you know, the husband would withdraw the housekeeping. How is she going to pay the bills for the week? How is she going to pay for the kids' schooling materials? Suddenly the power that we don't see suddenly becomes manifest when that trust that's set up by that thing that we can't live without is denigrated by the misuse of either one of the users or by the companies or the powers that be that are trying to sell us stuff.
Anyway, there's something that I escape, which is something to do about with after my separation.
Lots of this generation are the broken-hearted. There's a refusal to say no to sex, or, "Oh, you don't love me," rears its head. The internet's a two-bladed sword of porn, a choice between earthly thoughts and the heavenly upward. The idea that commitment is synonymous with exclusivity. The idea that a sufficiently intense love should cause you to cease being attracted to anyone else.
But it seems to be more about the group kind of dynamic. So what I find is like even the party culture, like you're out, you see the same people in all these different venues and stuff. People might think that they want to be at home tied down to one person, but they tend to have this whole kind of like attitude towards it, like when they do settle down, that's when they tend to want to go and find more, which kind of brings it back to like a whole, I think a international commune type mindset is definitely evident in my generation.
The normalization of jealousy as an indicator of love. The idea that being of value to your partner should always make up a large chunk of how you value yourself.
So if you were to ask them individually, most people would say they either want to be in a loving relationship or they just want to, play the field. But I think they want to be in a loving relationship while having the ability to play the field, which is the opposite of to what our parents and the generation before us were kind of promoting. So in our minds, we might feel like this is how we're supposed to do it, get married, have kids, buy a house and all that rubbish. But really, they want a group of like-minded individuals that they get on with and they click with and they're comfortable around and they're able to express themselves in their own individual way while being part of a group, because it's definitely a group. That's why all these trends, it's crazy, like you get groups of people that they think they're following a trend, but really what they're doing is they're trying to just belong to something, where the previous generations had the church and like scouts and clubs, and there's all this stuff that people would do. Now it's just generally like more attitudes, maybe what are you into, and there's different subcategories within that. But yeah, relationships are definitely quite challenging. For me personally, I find that relationships are fine as friendships, and then when it becomes too confined, it's almost like I feel like that's what I'm supposed to have, but it feels very restricting. And I think that's just outdated, outmoded. I think a lot of the reason why people got married was so they could afford to live and survive like together.
The idea that you should meet your partner's every need, and if you don't, you're either inadequate or they're too needy. The idea that a sufficiently intense love is enough to overcome any practical incompatibilities. Your insecurities are always your partner's responsibility to tiptoe around, and never yours to work on. Sex is like an orange. It can be sweet, but people get lost in it and miss the spiritual. Venus, the sacred feminine. Sex is not love. Love is not sex. The only way you can find love is within, and through your connection with Great Spirit, and with feminine divine wisdom. The difficulty in saying sorry. The difficulty in saying sorry. The difficulty in saying sorry.
But the reality is that a single mother, 3 kids, whether you have, whether you don't have, whether it's your assets, whether it's your family assets, everybody has the right to reserve what they have. And so often in life, love blinds to so many different things, and often the things that we least think about are the things that we need to be most careful of later on when a relationship breaks down. I saw that with my mother and father. They were asking for a position thinking, I need to preserve what I have, and I've got no idea as to how the relationship's going. Therefore, if it doesn't work out, what will this person seek to extract from me, if they're that kind of person? They're putting pounds and pence and dollar signs on constructs which are not there, and they don't need to be there. I think, if you look, don't get me wrong, whoever's marrying anybody, in my view, these days, needs some formative legal framework from which to, in my mind, I'll spring all that relationship table. And it was, looking back, knowing what her request was, it was about, 2/3, 3/5 of what she had a legal right to, but she just wanted to leave. That was, and it's 24 months down the line, I was thinking, A, I was glad I never signed anything, but B, also that coming out of the relationship at that time, as I was, I knew that my future interests were inadvertently protected, even just through having that conversation. And this very fine line between being friends and lovers, between busting up and being unsure as to that friend becoming a foe, and what they're then capable of.
You know something about it too.
And you often get, when two people are lovers, you see them out, sometimes their body movements will completely reflect what the other person is doing, and it's called mirroring. You're reflecting in a very likewise way. You're in agreement, you are in unison. And I always find, often with standout relationships, even if you can't hear what two people are saying from the other side of the room, the thing that always gives it all away is the body language. I mean, years ago when I first left school, I worked as a waiter, and we had a table in the restaurant. It was table number 7, and the manageress would always say, look, you always know when a couple come to the door and you let them in and you seat them, you know on the looks on their faces whether they've just had an argument, whether this is a make-up meal, or whether this is their lovers' weekend away meal. You'll get to read people. If there's any trouble, stick them at this table, because I can keep an eye on them. And we always used to know, basically, if there was a couple in trouble, we knew that because they were sat at this table. And we'd all you could all watch what was going on. The guy would lean forward, the girl would lean back, she's like, and you'd see the starter going down, then the main, and you'd see this play with body language of the toing and froing, and can he lean into her space? Has she forgiven him yet? Does it take another glass of wine, or is she allowed to have anything? I mean, sometimes it was that simple, which astounded me. I'd never seen that. And it was unusual seeing that, because I thought, well, if I can see that in them, what can other people see in me? And sometimes you often get people leaning over, people rowing in public maybe, and somebody will lean over and say something to one or the other, and that has an immediate dynamic effect. And what our manageress would do is, when she saw the boyfriends being too gobby or she would go over there, and she always used to lean down and whisper something in their ears. Sometimes these guys, big guys, and these young little waif girls would go, and you think, fuck me, if he piled into her. There was definitely that physical play. I was always becoming aware of that as well. The physical nature of relationships, and the fact that ultimately, in terms of physical strength, 9 times out of 10, the man will be greater physically than the woman. And of course, normally in relationships where physical harm or the battered wife syndrome kicks in, this getting these beat, and you would often see these quite big guys who are clearly being a bit rough, brushing someone's hand away when they're leaning forward to that innocuous non-existent piece of dust that they're brushing off. It's a lovely. Women have love languages. That's the kind of thing they do. They'll brush down the and when a man knocks a woman's hand back like that, that's not. It's violent in terms of the action is violent. It's not what we would describe as violence, but it's and she would always go over, lean down to the guy, and whisper in his ear. And I used to think, what was she saying? And she was quite a big woman, and it turns out she had long flowing hair, very large figure, wore these very flowing Laura Ashley dresses, and she would flight around the restaurant on toes like a ballet dancer, weightless. And she basically confessed to me that she'd been a bouncer years ago in a biker's bar or club in Birmingham. And she said, she had this thick accent. She said, do you know what I say, whisper in the men's ears? And she said, whenever I see a man mistreating his girlfriend, I would lean over and whisper into his ear, you start treating your girlfriend properly, or I'll...
But that's not all he did.
Online, it's like a whole movement of people that are like involuntary celibate because they they haven't got the social skills, or it's quite harsh out there, their ability to contact with partners. And then there's other people that are kind of like just boycotting the opposite sex. Like the War of the Roses turned into a next level type of battle, where it's almost like, unless there's something directly going to benefit them, they don't really feel the need to subscribe to that partnership. So women out there, if they're working on whatever, they don't necessarily need a man. Like a woman might decide that there's a lot of girls getting together as well, and there's a lot of girls that will have men just for, you know, action as and when, and they don't really want to be in a position that they saw their parents and their mums in. I think, yeah, they flip and reverse it, definitely.
And it happens that the sparks happened on the first time we met our eyes. Something happened. It was an unexplainable feeling on that day.
To do with like there's open relationships, there's agreements, there's like
Swinging.
There's loads of there's three-way relationships, there's bisexuality, which is included in it. If it's destined, you both know it's ecstatic. When you feel relaxed in someone's arms, time does just stop. But when you start feeling lonely in it,
I just love that individual. I just want to be with them. I'm thinking about the happy ever after, not the happy ever awful. What am I going to lose? I'm gaining everything. I'm gaining a partner. I'm gaining a lover. I'm gaining a confidant, somebody I want to spend time with, and I'm not thinking about the pitfalls or the negative things that go when relationships break down. Most relationships do break down, and there's always a pitfall that we don't see. We're not there judging the individual in the cold, harsh light of day. We're not seeing all their faults. We might be aware of them. We're not fools. We're aware of these things, but ultimately, we're not thinking, what's this person going to be demanding of me when it all goes tits up, if that's what happens.
we are all in search, we are all in pursuit. We want the purest form, but we get conditioned, confused. Sex is not love. Love is not sex. The only way you can find love is within. The seesaw tipped more. We slipped into total war. He was sinister. He wouldn't let go of his phone. A permanent visitor. He kept me prisoner.
And after 6 months, we got married. We have a good 7 years relationship and marriage. 5 years in marriage, 2 years as in a relationship. Unfortunately, things happen which is uncontrollable. Regardless if the love was there, there are still personality of two people that's not really suitable to each other. We're both dominant people in terms of our career, in terms of what we wanted to achieve in life. However, it sometimes contradicts because I have my own ways how to achieve things. He has his own way to achieve things. He wanted me to push a certain way, with some of those helped me a lot in order for me to grow. However, there are other things that I'm a hard-headed woman that I can't be told. That when I say, oh yeah, then afterwards I'm doing it my way. Anyway, I was born to be a leader myself.
He's frightened of the other person doing what he was doing. I know that tactic.
Who are you really looking at?
It's not about the other. It's all about you. That just mirrors. Why am I not meeting that stuff in myself? Why do I need others to fill up my deficit? Always follow your gut, and your heart will follow.
And we have somebody who is reflecting the good in us, saying what we're good at, trying to bring us up, give us confidence. The good things in a relationship that we get, the positive attributes that we learn, not just about that other person but ourselves. I always find the best relationships happen with people that bring the best out of you.
Opposites do attract. You don't have to have all these things in common.
I always think, look, if you're with somebody and they're bringing the worst out of you, that's when to call it a day, you know. But it's very, 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 you know, we can see it all around us. People are always making bad relationships. I've made bad relationship decisions. And it's often been when what I see of myself does not tally up with how the world sees me or how my partner sees me or their family sees me.
There's someone else in the room, so the authentic self can't bloom to its truth.
There's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be gains. What are the pitfalls versus the gains?
They're all selfish and dishonest snakes and lizards. They all have excuses.
That's not correct at all.
At the moment, we are on separate ways in good terms. We actually still communicate as good people. We set aside the negativity in what happened to our past because it's part of our learning point. Now, the only thing that we could do is actually support each other, whatever makes us happy. And I think he's happy now. He's back on his track.
I'm rolling now.
Yeah.
That my lack of knowledge puts me at risk from somebody with greater knowledge, and that's all it takes. Trust is everything. But if you leave your iPhone lying around and they know your PIN number, they can open it up, and they've seen you do it so many times next to them on the couch, same with the iPad, you know.
But when you start feeling lonely in it,
And that can be a very powerful thing, because it's a bit like the story of the portrait of Dorian Gray. You know, the idea that, this ties in with all kinds of stuff, you know, modernity, you know, our online presence, how many friends we've got on our Facebook page or don't, or, you know, what our likes and dislikes are, all that feeds into it. It's a very powerful thing.
I can't understand him. I wanted him for my own.
To thyself be true. Authenticity is a basis for any relationship.
The difficulty in saying sorry.
One must enter relationships with both eyes open. When we choose not to enter this way, then we become blinded to the truth.
He's a narcissist. Being here, tidying up. The thin line between love and hate.
Relationships are not always fairy tales with happy ever afters. They are often, for many, wrenched in pain, confusion, heartache and regret.
The anger, passion, pity in his eyes. Possession, merchandise.
When in doubt, don't. Fools rush in where angels fear to tread. When we choose to disregard this great saying, we become tangled in a web until you're certain, very certain, do not enter sexual relationships. Know thyself, know what you want, and until you find it, keep your knickers on.
If the other circumstances come in, that is, I told you so. That's the annoying thing.
You do get burnt by it. Love has no age or agenda.
Here as a married person, but as a single person, I didn't know that I was so overwhelmed. I tried to date everyone and jumping, and it doesn't work that way. And rules of life, whatever you do to someone else will bite back you, and it's a very hard bite.
I think it was there before, but now people are more accepting of it. And not only that, the internet has allowed people to connect with like-minded individuals from, so the groups and different preferences can find each other easier now. And then the dating game with the apps and stuff is kind of like taking the emotion out of connecting with people. It's not the excitement of seeing someone, it's like you can just go online and pick it. It's like when you used to get a catalogue and picking a catalogue. So now it's a bit more overly kind of less emotional about the whole decision process. It's not a feeling, it's just more like a thought process, like, oh, how many kilometers are they from me? What do they do? It's like, yeah, it's like top jumps with people.
And then I will let the time or love find me. So I don't need to find anyone. I don't need to be in the dating site. Besides, my ex-husband, I didn't meet him online anyway. So it's the fate that I was trying to believe in at the moment. And if things happens for me, if it's my fate, then so be it. I believe in fate. Thank you.
Two reeds. Two reeds drink from one stream. One is hollow, the other is sugar cane.
I forgot to mention I was still in love with someone.
We can talk about that now if you
All
want.
right, okay.
Godard's Rashomon.